after many years since I left the pastorate in 1995, and there were a lot of things I had learned up to that point that had me walk away. And I walked away from a church that I had started. And the main reason at the time is I realized that the church, as it's translated in English versions, the ecclesia is the called out, the out-called ones. Not a building, not a meeting, not a set of doctrines. It's believers who have been those people have been chosen early to believe. And the more that truth settled with me, the more unsettled I became with the institution itself. And I had started my church, so here's how you'll hear this. And because I had come to a place where I didn't know where else I fit, and it was my attempt to do a good job of it. But over time, the more I understood what the church really was from a scriptural standpoint, I became unsettled with the institution itself, even my own version of it. And it became very gut-wrenching, actually. And the way I began to see it is that Paul says that there is one body, one Lord, one body, one baptism, so forth, one body. And although during the Acts period there had been multiple ecclesias in the plural, by the time you get to the pinnacle revelation of Ephesians and Colossians, there was one. And so it really began to trouble me that God had a church and then I had one. And he started his and I started mine. And he had members and I had members. And and you see on down the line, and I began to sense some kind of competition with God, and all I really wanted to do was just be who He had made me, and be done. And so I just stepped away. It's all I knew my whole life. My parents used to like to say that I was never even in the nursery at church. They just always kept me, and it's the only thing I knew, and it became really my life. And if you've been really involved in that, you know what that means. It's Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, Sunday night. It's really almost every day of the week. There's the function going on, and then of course it became my livelihood as well. And so it was my social relationships, and even family relationships, because the family was all tied up in it. And so then in 1995 I just walked away, and that meant I walked away in a sense from a lot of family and from friends, and it was my occupation and my social outlet, and it was just really everything. It was just really everything I had known. And from that time on, I've had the time to devote to studying, and I'll have to tell you that almost everything I learned and used to preach, I now see completely differently. In fact, I can't think of anything that I see the same when I started out. So when I say I misunderstood some stuff, You know, that's just, I'm sharing with you my journey, and I'm still in the process of learning and growing and working on things and sorting things out. And I'm, you know, and I'm all ears, and I try to learn from others, and I just keep going back to the book to see, like the Bereans did, if these things are so. And so this topic in particular may be a little newer to you. And, you know, I just know from talking to a lot of you that there's a lot of folks here that have come because you understand the salvation of all. And that's obviously, that is a tremendous truth. But there are so many truths. I used to say, I said when I started my church, that it seemed Christianity had a lot of stuff wrong. No, let me rephrase that. I said it had some stuff wrong, and I was hoping to see if I could adjust some of those things. And then along the way, I began to say, well, you know, it looks like to me Christianity has like a lot of stuff wrong. And then a little more time passed, I said, wow, I think they got most of it wrong. And more recently, I'm not sure what they have right. And so I can appreciate the fact that if you're here and anything I've said up to this point, and of course, obviously what we're getting ready to study and the next lesson, you know, I completely understand if you think I'm pretty crazy. I understand that, because I would have thought so too. If I'd have heard myself speak, I'd say, oh my goodness. In fact, one of the first big turns in my understanding came from, I had a conversation with a man, and I felt, when we were done, I felt really sorry for him. I mean, my heart went out to him. He believed in the distinct ministry and work of Paul, and that it was different than that of Christ and the 12 in the Gospels, and we talked, and I felt so sorry for him. I said to myself, I heard about him in Bible college. I heard about this guy. You know, this is some kind of cult or something that he's got himself in. I felt really bad. And I thought, you know what? He gave me a book. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not going to dismiss him. I'm going to read this book very carefully. I'm going to find out where this all goes wrong, and then I'm going to help him. Yeah. So after a few months, I thanked him because a floodlight from God's Word and questions I had had for years were being answered, and something that we like to call right division, or properly understanding where things fit in the Scriptures.